Hey mama, I'm Trish, and I need to tell you something that might tick off some people in the birth world. Birth doesn't have to be terrifying. It just needs to stop being a stinking mystery. After 16 years as a labor and delivery nurse, catching over 1,000 babies and birthing 6 of my own, I got fed up watching scared, unprepared moms walk into delivery rooms. So I created the birth education I wish every mama had. Real talk from someone who's been on both sides of that delivery room door. Right now, I'm giving you everything: my 3 signature birth courses, monthly support calls, my brand new birth pod class, and 30 days free in our Mama membership. Plus, I'm shipping you my labor birth comb absolutely free. This little tool is a game changer for natural pain relief during contractions. That's over $4,300 worth of birth education, plus a physical tool delivered to your door. Your body was made for this, mama, but you need to know your options. Get the Calm Birth Bundle at labornursemama.com/calm, C-A-L-M, because confident mamas have better births. You get a 14-day money-back guarantee, lifetime access, and it's available right now inside our app. Stop letting birth be a mystery. Get educated, get empowered, get the bundle, and get your birth comb free. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Birth Experience. Today, I have the pleasure of talking to one of my students, Sarah Ebrahimi, which I've been practicing so I didn't botch her last name. So, Sarah is a calm labor, confident birth student, and I am so excited to talk to her and you guys. You are going to be so pleasantly shocked because Sarah is only 7 weeks postpartum. And we started to talk about how she's feeling before we started recording, but I want you guys to jump in on this conversation. So first, before we go there, Sarah, I would love for you to introduce yourself. Just tell everyone what number baby, just tell us a little bit about you and how you found the Labor Nurse Mama birth classes.
Sure. So I'm in my late 30s. I'm 37. I'm a first-time mom. I live in the Washington, D.C. region. I grew up in New England, lived in New York City for a couple years, spent the majority of my 20s living and working abroad, mostly in Latin America. So had a lot of exposure to different types of healthcare systems through that experience. Moved to the D.C. area about 10 years ago for work. I work in international development. And I was diagnosed, well, not diagnosed, but when I turned 35, I hadn't met my husband at that point, and I always knew I wanted to become a mom. So during one of my annual OBGYN checkups, I said, just for the heck of it, let's run some baseline numbers regarding fertility just to get some benchmarks. And it turned out that I had really low AMH and high prolactin. And so those were some markers that indicated that I might have some challenges conceiving in the future. And that led me down a path of looking into my fertility, looking into freezing my eggs, and really trying to understand my health holistically. So to my surprise, fast forward almost 3 years, I ended up spontaneously getting pregnant while engaged to my now husband. And that sparked kind of my journey of, okay, I've learned so much about my health and my body and really wanting to, explore the more natural options first. And Trish, I don't remember exactly when I found you, but I do remember in those very early weeks of pregnancy, listening to your weekly, what to expect during this week of pregnancy podcast episodes. Okay. So it was definitely very, very early on in the first trimester that I discovered you. And it was towards the end of 2024 when I knew I wanted to sign up for Calm Labor Confident. And it was when I knew that my flexible health spending account dollars were going to expire on December 31st. And so I remember it being New Year's Eve. I think it was 10 p.m. And I was like, all right, it's time I pull the trigger because I know I want to be a member of this course. I've already consumed so much podcast content that I was like, it's time. Let me become an official student of Trish Ware. So that's the story.
Happy New Year.
Yes.
I love that so much. I want to rewind because your story is so fascinating. And I love that you said you went and you got the labs done and some things were off somewhat. Did you change your diet? Did you start doing things? Because I know you were exploring all of that, but what kind of changes did you make?
Yeah. So leading up to freezing my eggs, I actually went down to Argentina to freeze my eggs because that was where I had lived for a while and really, had a good network, had a good confidence in the healthcare system. And the doctors down there, they're much more holistic, I would say. And so in conversations, my doctor, she recommended that I look into fertility acupuncture. So I've been doing acupuncture on an almost weekly basis now since January of 2023. And I also started following some different accounts on Instagram, educators in the healthcare field, such as yourself, that really looked at kind of, how does your diet, how does your lifestyle, what are those changes that we can make to help, best support our bodies. And
Mhm.
my parents, my mother is very much, if I'm sick, give me a pill. I will take any pill that the doctor tells me to, and a very good patient in that
Yeah.
perspective. My
Yeah.
father is the opposite. He is, why would I take a blood pressure pill when I can change my diet and when I can do exercise? So I had both of those influences growing up, and I see their health outcomes now. And my father is 13 years older than my mother, yet can kind of outlap her in every way related to good health. And so I've always related a little bit more to kind of going the more, see what we can do to change our lifestyle first. And so going
Okay.
into pregnancy, I continued with the acupuncture, brought in other wellness practices such as meditation, lots of yoga, self-care, therapy. That's also been a big piece of this puzzle, just to keep stress and
Yeah.
anxiety at ease during so many overlapping life moments. Planning a wedding and planning for your first child, those are two major life events that both have a lot of the
Yeah.
tasks fall on the woman. And so being able to juggle and manage both of those really important events was definitely stressful, but well worth it.
I there's just so many ways that we could go, like so many different things. But I love that you brought up that you were healing your inside. You were working on your mindset because I say
Hmm.
this all the time, which birth is 90% mental. And it's
Yes.
so true. It's
Yes.
so
Yes.
true. So I love
Absolutely.
that you had all those tools to use. And of course, we teach a lot of that in the birth class as well. But I can 100% say that the women who came into the bedside that I would admit that wanted to have an unmedicated birth,
Hmm.
the ones who had education and had like a plan of action, especially when it comes to that mental aspect,
Hmm.
and also the way in which they told me they were going unmedicated really indicated to me where they were in their mindset. So if they said something like, "Yeah, I'm going to go," they would, most often said natural. "I'm going to go natural and here's my plan." Or on the flip side, if they said, "Well, I'm going to try to go unmedicated," I knew for sure we were in trouble. So I could tell by the way they told me. So if they said, "I'm going to try," I was like, "Oh shoot." this is this might not go because
Yeah.
I tell people all the time you kind of have to marry that decision, and
Yeah.
it's like saying I'm going to try this marriage out.
No, Trish, one thing
Then
I put in my
yeah,
birth plan, thanks to you, was do not offer me pain medication. It was like written in bold letters on
yeah,
the whiteboard in labor and delivery. Just do not offer pain medication. I had a doula to support me. And I think in addition to Calm Labor Confident, one of the resources that I really relied on was a very, very old school book, Ina May's Guide to Childbirth.
how I love
And
it. I love that book.
just
Yeah.
knowing that I was trying to go, you know, to your point of I'm going to try it versus I'm committed to this
Mhm.
being a life experience I want to have. I viewed it
Mhm.
as I don't want to be on my deathbed not knowing what childbirth felt like. And I think
Yeah.
that's part of the motivation. You have to be really intrinsically motivated
Mhm.
and know that it's going to be challenging, but that you really, really want that experience. And so for me, it was a life experience, not just a thing to do or something to try.
And I love that you said that because I did a workshop inside the membership about what is your why. And if you can map that out, why you want to go unmedicated and not just like, well, my mom did, da, 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 like really deep down, like what is your motivation for going unmedicated and find that why. And that can help you. And for any of you guys listening, I highly recommend that you tell the nurses not to ask you, because when you're in the throes of labor and then someone's like, here, take this, like, come on, it'll be so
Here's
much
the candy.
easier. Here you go, little one. Like, it's so tempting because you're in a much different mental space during labor. And I personally, and I say this too all the time, there's some things I just say all the time, but when you're in labor, your only job is to labor. It's not to defend your birth plan. It's not to advocate for yourself. It's not to ask all the questions. That's where your partner can step in. But if you can get into your labor bubble and stay in that bubble, you're golden. You really are. So I would love to hear, I was looking through what you filled out for the podcast, and I love that you're planning this wedding and you're planning this baby. So how far along were you at the wedding?
6.5 months.
Okay. So you were past being sick.
Yeah. Well, I didn't have, I have to say, my little baby, we didn't find out the gender until birth. So that was another element of surprise.
Which I love.
But we didn't, God bless our baby, but we were so lucky. I had very minimal morning sickness. I was able to continue doing yoga, Pilates 4 to 5 days a week throughout pregnancy. So really physically fit, mentally well, due to kind of the self-care resources that I described earlier. And then also just really trying to equip myself. And I've listened to your podcast so many times. I know that you love to kind of hear kind of what was the before and after. And I think my before Calm Labor Confident was, I knew what I wanted, but I didn't know the language, the tools, the menu of options to get me there. I am someone that I love to ask questions. I love to be really well informed in all aspects of my life. And so for me to know, I'm going to these doctor's appointments, they're not really talking about anything that's going to happen. They're very in the moment of, how are you today? Do you have fetal movement? Let's get your vitals. But there's no discussion about here's what to expect. And knowing how much I like to have information as a source of comfort and to a certain degree control, I felt that your course, it just really, really equipped me with, as you like to say, the full menu of options, and to be able to pick and choose what best suits me, my body, my birth goals, and my family, and then go in so that there were no surprises. I remember being at one point in my labor and realizing, I'm not having those crazy, I can't do this, get the baby out of me, just give me a cesarean, intrusive thoughts that are common to transition. But I was feeling really different. And so I was like, okay, this must be transition. This is why I'm feeling this way. And so just to have, there were so many different moments during labor where I could connect back to either something I read or something I heard or something that you taught in the course that really grounded me to, this is familiar, this is expected, there's nothing to be afraid of. And I may be getting a little bit ahead in the birth story, but at the end of my, once baby's in my arms and everything is calm, my midwife, she came up to me and she's like, there was just so much tenderness and love in this room. There was no fear. There was no room for fear. It was just like, I don't often tear up during a birth, and I've been doing this a long time, but I was getting, my tears welling up in my eyes during your birth because of how beautiful it was. And it was an honor to be here in just such a space of love and no fear. And so I credit so much of that to you, Trish.
Thank you. I'm kind of choked up myself because that is what birth is supposed to be like. And unfortunately, we've been programmed to see it as this really scary, horrible, you have to endure it and just get through the pain to get to your baby. And I personally feel like the whole journey is so beautiful and valuable. And if you approach it with, I actually was just talking to my daughter today about mindset. We get to decide, we get to choose how we define things. And so you can go into your birth really scared, even if you have knowledge. And this is why I say I have the Calm Labor framework where we work on the knowledge, we work on the mindset, and then we work on being able to speak up, because there's a lot of women who know what they know. They feel really confident, but they're too scared to speak up. So they end up agreeing to things they don't want.
Yeah.
And so you have to have all three parts. But I love that we get to choose how we view birth going into it. And does that mean you're going to have an absolutely perfect birth? No. But if you go into it calm and you go into confident, hence the name of the course, you are able to navigate those twists and turns in a much different way than someone who's winging their birth, period.
Yes. Yes.
And I
Completely
love that.
agree with that. Yeah. And to kind of your philosophy around birth, I think that there's something to be said for having all the information, but if you're not able to advocate for yourself, I was just having, brunch with a girlfriend yesterday who's giving birth in October, and she's saying, I have so much anxiety. I don't know how to say no to someone in an authority figure. And I was like, practice your no's. Practice
She needs to
saying
come my
no.
way.
I
Yeah.
tried. I tell everyone. And I said, practice your no's. Practice saying no to that work commitment that maybe doesn't align with what's on your plate. Practice saying no to that, invitation to a social event that might be more draining than rejuvenating. Practice saying
Yeah.
no to the easy stakes things in life so that when it comes to
Yeah.
something really important. And to kind of switch gears slightly, one thing that I was really prepared for, but I didn't confront in birth was the cascade of interventions and feeling that pressure. And I credit so much of that to you helping educate about how to select providers, because
Mm.
my gynecologist of 10 years, so ever since I moved to DC, I love her, love her, love her, love the practice, love the hospital that they deliver at. But the hospital is about 45 minutes from my house where she delivers. And so I knew I don't really want to, when I have options, 5, 10, 15 minutes away, I want to find a provider that's closer. So I did all my homework, interviewing different providers, doing those meet and greets, and eventually landed on what I felt was the best practice and the best hospital to support low intervention, unmedicated births. And after about like 26, 28 weeks, I ended up getting really sick with the flu. It was like the peak flu season,
Mm.
had some miscommunications regarding what over the counter medications were okay to take, had some miscommunications around, okay, if your fever stays this high for this long, go into the hospital versus not. And so I ended up having my confidence quite shaken during that experience, along with some admin issues regarding scheduling. I found myself questioning, oh my gosh, I'm almost 30 weeks. Is this still the
Yeah.
right practice for me? And I remember something you said in a podcast. It was my mamas that have changed practices, they never regret it. It's those that stay that do end up regretting it. And so I
Mm-hmm.
kind of gathered my thoughts, put them in an email to the medical director of the OB department at the hospital. And she ended up calling me personally. And we had like an hour
Wow.
long conversation to really talk through all of the concerns that I laid out. And she was able to alleviate those anxieties. And I was able to come to a place of, this is the right practice for me. And they made sure that they really did focus on kind of rebuilding my trust as a patient. And just to have, that extra push that I got through your course to speak up, to ask those
Yeah.
questions, if something doesn't feel right, don't sit there, keep showing up at appointments, not knowing if this really is the right
Yes.
provider and right practice and right delivery hospital for you. And so it took there were some bumps and pain points along the way, but really, your education around self-advocacy is, it carries through all of pregnancy and delivery. And I
And
feel like it's
and
a
parenting.
life
Yeah.
skill. It's a life skill.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I was thinking about with your friend is in your birth, like being afraid to speak up in your birth can leave with lifelong trauma because you'll always wonder. Speaking up might lead to an uncomfortable situation, but chances of it leading to a lifelong trauma for you is really slim.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah.
what I recommend to everyone is you start having these hard conversations early and often so you can practice that and you start talking to
Mm-hmm.
them and things at your appointments, like you said, start saying no to some of the little things. What that also does is it shows your provider you're not going to be the one who's just like, yes, yes, yes. They're like, okay, I might have to go a little deeper with this one, and so, and the thing is, and unfortunately, especially for us as women, we've been taught to like be quiet, be meek, don't speak up. And like there's, her, if she's speaking up, that's that type of person. And we have to change that narrative because it is our birth, period.
Yes.
And I say this all the time. Your labor nurse, your provider, they're going to go home. This is a shift. This is a job for them. you will never forget those things ever. So if you guys are listening, like, start practicing this muscle now, because you'll need it for your children. You will face situations with your children, and you want to be that parent who is confident to speak up. And I think the main thing is just getting rid of this feeling that you're doing something wrong, because it's not wrong, you know? Okay. So I don't want to go on forever, because I know my listeners, they don't like really long podcasts, but I want to hear, tell us leading up to going into labor, tell us about your birth, tell us how you're feeling.
Yeah, so I ended up, I guess maybe ironically, going into labor on the exact kind of average first time mom delivers at 40 plus 5.
40.
And so
Okay.
I had ended up going into my 40-week appointment. I was being seen by a midwife, and so their practice would allow me to go to 42 weeks. And I went to my 40-week appointment, and I started to have that low grade anxiety of, okay, I know I don't want to be induced. So what do I need to do?
Yeah.
I had remained active. I remember I did the mile circuit on a Sunday afternoon going into the evening. And then the next day was a Monday. Sunday into Monday, I woke up at 3:45 in the morning having very light contractions. And I was someone that I've never had difficult periods. So I'm not like I know cramps. I can handle pain in that area. But the contractions were very light. And I remember your advice, and then the advice of my doula as well, was, just try to have a normal day, because early labor can
Just
last
ignore
for
it. Yeah.
quite some time. Yep. So I was having, work meetings and calls, and made lunch, tried to take a nap in the afternoon. Evening time rolled around. I did a quick check-in with my doula, and she's like, okay, let me hear you go through a contraction. She's like, yeah, it's still very light. Let's just have a good night's sleep, take a bubble bath, get to bed early. You need to rest. And then tomorrow we'll start doing all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I took that bubble bath, climbed into bed. My lower back
I don't trust you. I don't trust you already. I already don't trust you. Yeah.
Yeah. So my lower back was having a lot of pain. So I asked my husband, he's, watching a basketball game in the living room. I say, can you come to bed and just massage my back? As soon as he climbs into bed, my water breaks. And I was GBS positive, and my hospital had told me, if your water breaks during labor, we want to get you in so we can get you started on the penicillin. Immediately, my contractions increased in intensity, called my doula. We said, all right, let's all meet at the hospital. Got to the hospital around 11 p.m. And at that point, my first thought was, oh, shoot, I haven't slept since 3:45 this morning. How am I going to do this? How am I going to sleep?
Yeah.
Ended up laboring throughout the night, throughout the following day. I was very limited with the number of cervical checks that I got, because I knew that was going to affect my mindset of, oh, I'm only X number of centimeters.
Yeah.
So definitely followed your advice there. Had my doula that was supporting with changing positions, and the baby was born at 3:07 p.m. the following day. So I had about 36 hours roughly when you combine the early labor and then active labor. But really, in the moment, I felt that I had gone in with so many tools in my toolbox. I had the TENS unit and all the balls and the comb to squeeze. And I asked for the tub and the shower, and I had everything laid out. But in the end, all I could focus on was my breath. So I think breath work got me through it.
Oh, it's so important.
Really was. It was just, I just told myself, with each contraction, breathe in for 4, out for 8. And then make whatever low guttural noise that felt most instinctive, and just to try to keep my jaw as relaxed as possible. And that was what got me through.
I was going to ask you what your favorite tool. Did you use the tub or the shower?
I did. I thought I was going to love the tub. But the tub is massive. So they told me, they're like, okay, the tub takes a long time to fill up. Let's get you in the shower and you be in the shower while we fill the tub. So I get in the shower, and they have this really high powered shower head. I love super hot water. I'm like one of those scalding hot shower ladies.
Yeah, me too.
So I was leaning against the shower wall, sitting down, and during each contraction would put the shower head on my lower back where I had the majority of the pain. And then they said, oh, the tub's ready. And I was like, ooh, can't wait for the tub. Get in the tub. Hated it. I hated the sensation of floating.
That's weird, because I didn't like that what was out was so cold. So I felt cold. And so I ended up, for my fourth, I was going to have a tub birth. They let us deliver in the tub. Yeah. And I got so aggravated with
like the part because I couldn't quite stay out like down low enough or up. And
Yeah.
so I kept getting so chilled that I was like, forget it, get me out of here. So yeah.
Yeah, I ended up turning my body so that I was in the short side of the tub and I had my feet against and my back against, and I loved the pressure against my
Okay.
back. And then I would
Yeah.
use that as shower head on my lower back during the contractions. But the sensation of just like floating felt terrible. And I was like, and
That's
I
so
had
interesting.
really bad shakes and chills throughout, which I knew to expect thanks
Right.
to your course. I
Yeah.
knew to expect.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking, I was like, my body's wasting so much energy shivering. It should be using this energy
Yeah.
towards labor and delivery. I'm like, this is a waste of being cold, but
So tell us about the delivery. Were you in bed? Did you not get in the bed? How were you laying?
yeah.
What tell us about that.
Right. So baby was born around 3 p.m. And I think best estimate was around noon. I started to get into what felt like near constant contractions. The pain of
Mm,
the contraction didn't go away, but what did go away was just the feeling of the urge to push. And I
mhm.
remember my midwife, she would just come in and just sit very calmly and be looking at me a couple feet away and just talking to me. And I remember opening my eyes and asking her, kind of, okay, so I know that I'm not ready to push yet, but what are we waiting for? What's the switch? And I remember her
Yeah.
saying, we'll notice a change in the character of your contractions. And I remember kind of rolling my eyes and being like, oh great, I don't know what that
Like, give me
means. Like,
something more than
yeah,
that. Yeah.
give me something more concrete. Because as I said, I like to have, information.
Yeah.
And I just remember, being, okay, just trust the process. They're gonna tell me. A little bit later, she asked me, she's like, would you like a cervical check? Because she could tell I was getting a little bit like, all right, where
Yeah.
are we going? And I said, contemplated it. And I said, all right, yes, I would. And she checks and she says, okay, well, you don't, there's no more cervix and I can see the baby's head. And I remember thinking, well, what does that mean?
Wait
And
a
then
minute. Yeah.
she's like, oh, it means that we could start pushing. And then I remember thinking, oh, but I'm so tired. I'd been awake
Yeah.
since 3:45 the day before. And
Yeah.
I ended up using a squat bar to start. So like on the bed, they put some pillows on top of the
Yeah.
squat bar to make it a little more cozy on my forearms and elbows. Eventually, though, my legs just got really tired from holding the weight of my
Yeah.
body. So then I began, you
Squatting
know,
gets very exhausting.
really, really
Yeah.
tiring. And
Yeah.
they ended up bringing up the back of the bed so that I could like rest in between contractions. And then eventually I stopped being able to, have them bring me back up onto the squat bar. And I was
Yeah.
basically just laying very much upright in the bed and push baby out about 35 minutes. But that
That's
feeling
amazing.
of, being able to have a big mirror there, I had just very relaxing meditation music playing the entire time at the hospital. My husband, he was able to, catch the baby. What helped me was the warm compress
Oh yeah.
against my vagina
Perineum.
yeah. And
Yeah.
for me, that actually helped in a sense stimulate the contractions and that urge to push. So I found it very soothing. And I
Yeah.
had a mild hemorrhage due to my placenta kind of grabbing
Mm,
on a little bit, but didn't
yeah.
require any intervention. Very, very small tears, but didn't require any stitches. And I remember in
That's
particular
amazing. Yeah.
listening to your podcast about tearing. And I remember
Yeah.
feeling, I have no fear about the tearing
Yeah.
anymore after that podcast episode. So definitely link that link that
Yeah.
episode because it completely removed my fear of tearing. And I also remember as I was pushing your conversation around kind of the ring of fire of, don't retreat when you feel
Yeah.
intensity, because as like,
Don't slam it and don't retreat. Yeah.
yes, it's
Just
going
baby
to,
pushes. Yeah.
yes, exactly. And so you
Yeah.
were so present with me, all of your
I
advice,
love it.
not only advice, but education, evidence-based
Yeah.
birth education that you provided that made everything feel predictable. And,
Mm,
oh, this is the landmark that I'm at. Oh, this is what's going
yeah.
to happen next. Oh, I remember this being mentioned. It just makes
And
it all feel,
there's so much peace in that. And I
yes.
for those of you guys who haven't listened to me before, one of the things I know I say it a lot, but I feel like it's so true is if you were to, and this happened to me when we went to Italy, I am normally so OCD, like I'm type A, like I have everything mapped out. I print like this is where we have to go in the train station to get the train to the city. And this is the stop. These are the landmarks. This is how you get to the Airbnb. This is what you're going to see. Like I have it all mapped out. And when we went to Italy, I was in the middle of a launch. We had a ton of things going on. I was like, whatever. I had it in some of the stuff in an app in my phone. I purchased the plan to use my phone in Italy, and we get there and my phone will not work at all. So I had nothing. Like I didn't even print out the Airbnb information. And it was so disconcerting. And here we are on this amazing trip. And I don't want to sound like I like don't appreciate, because I do, but it really changed my feelings and my perception of that beginning of that trip, because I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know how to ask anyone. I didn't speak the language.
Right.
And I thought a lot about that. That is what it feels like when you go into labor and delivery without the tools, without the knowledge, without understanding the language. You are going to have this amazing experience that is dampered by all of that. And so I love that you're like, I knew what was happening. I knew what to expect. I knew the landmarks. Like I always say, your birth is like a map. You're on a road trip and you've hit the welcome to whatever sign, you know, and that does make all the difference in the world. It really does. And it's so beautiful. I'm so glad that you shared that. And for those of you guys listening, I say this all the time, take away the fear of tearing, because if you're so concentrating on not tearing, you're not going to push right and you're not going to listen to your body. And tearing is just a part of how our bodies are made to accommodate the baby that your body made. And so again, we're not flat on our back with our legs up on stirrups. That is going to increase the chances of tearing. But so does squatting. But yet you were in a semi-squatting position and you still knew what to do to keep the tearing from happening.
Yes.
So that's huge.
I felt completely comfortable and ready. And I think the only thing I would change is trying harder to get some sleep while I was at home during early labor. I know it's very hard when you're feeling those contractions.
Your adrenaline's going.
You want to wake up your husband immediately. It took everything in my power to not wake him up at 3:45 in the morning. Like, hey, it's happening. It's happening. But try to get as much rest as you can, because once it's game on, you really are getting these like miraculous, like micro naps if and when you can. So sleep when you can, as they say.
Yes. I always say ignore it until you can. And if you can ignore it, try to rest. Like, please don't try to do all the things. Okay. So tell us how far into postpartum you are now.
Yes, I'm 7 weeks and already have begun, mommy and baby yoga classes and going for daily walks. And I feel a lot better than I expected. I don't know what to credit it to, but I think part of it was going in with very low expectations of what life would look like. And I think, going
so
in
you didn't
and knowing,
put pressure on yourself.
Nothing. I was like, this, at least for the first 2 weeks, my life is going to revolve. I wanted to exclusively breastfeed. It's like my life will revolve around breastfeeding, and that is going to be it. So
I love it.
Nothing else on my plate. I think my husband, he struggled a bit more than me, because I think he expected baby to be one more thing on his plate, but it was really, he needed to have baby as the whole plate in terms of mindset. And so I've, gotten through the initial hump of figuring out breastfeeding. That's been the biggest challenge so far. But I think really just have a great care team set up. So definitely connect with a lactation consultant if you're planning on breastfeeding. Do that prenatal appointment. See a pelvic floor therapist. I think that was also something I got from your podcast, was to see them while still pregnant, so that you can
to get a baseline.
Get the baseline, and then alert them as soon as you give birth, because those appointments, at least where I'm from, can be very hard to schedule.
I think that's everywhere.
They're just so few of them, and we need to get more practicing. But getting that care team established, I also chose to encapsulate my placenta. So that might have had some sort of positive impacts. Anecdotally, for me, it did help in terms of I didn't feel any crazy mood swings. I was able to just not cruise. There was very challenging, but was able to get to a place of where I feel like leaving the house was really nourishing instead of draining, and just being able
I
to
love
create
that.
those like once a day, get out of the house, get that burst of, oh, I feel like myself because I walked to the coffee shop 10 minutes away,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
retreat back home. But it's been a really positive experience, and I'm very, very grateful for it.
I am so happy to hear your story. It's so beautiful. And I love that even with your postpartum, I feel like your real superpower is your mindset. And I think
Thank you.
you have so prepared yourself to accept the journey, to not
Mm.
control the journey, and to be on the journey instead of, I think a lot of us are so afraid from the things we've heard, and it's going to be this way because, and shame on women who scare women. Like, I hate when I hear someone who's like, oh, I told my friends I was pregnant, and they're like, oh, just wait. Like, instead of being like,
Yeah.
yes, like,
Yeah.
come on, let's not do that. Like, let's stop that.
Yeah.
So before we get off, I would love for you to tell everyone, like, what is one word that you feel about your birth? Like, how would you describe it? One word.
Say fulfilling.
I love that.
Fulfilling. It
I love
was,
that.
the birth of my dreams. Birth of my dreams. And
It's
part of it
amazing.
was to do to the nature side of it, baby being healthy, mama being healthy, all the stars aligning in terms of me being able to have to execute the birth plan that I
Yeah.
wanted, but also fulfilling in the sense of, this might be my only baby. And you have only one time at bat to get it right. what it is
Well,
what
and
it is
even
you're
with each
only.
baby. Yeah. But even with each baby,
Yeah.
I say this all the time. You only get one chance to birth this baby. But I don't know, Sarah. I don't know. I'm not sure it's your only
Ask
baby.
my
We'll see.
husband.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know.
We'll see.
Well,
We'll
thank you
see.
so much for coming today. And I'm so happy that I got to be a part of your journey. And
Thank
I
you,
am
Trish.
so proud of you. You did
Thank
amazing.
you.
You're so
Thank you for
welcome.
being the leader and the woman that you are, and just really so giving with your love and your knowledge. You're making a difference in the world.
Oh, now she's going to joke me up. Well, thank you so much. Okay.
Oh my goodness, you guys, what a beautiful story. And I am so grateful that Sarah was here. Were you sitting on the edge of your seat? I actually choked up quite a few times. And I just want you to remember that birth does not have to be this scary thing. It can be something that you embrace and you tell yourself, I'm excited. Stop telling yourself that you're scared or you're worried. Just start telling yourself, I'm excited. I am powerful. My body was made to birth this baby. And let's go into your birth with that power and that knowledge. If you guys are ready to jump into the birth classes, we've got links in the show notes. And we are just so honored and excited that you're here. We adore you guys. We love you guys. You are not alone. You're not doing this alone. We're here with you. As always, I will see you again next week. Bye for now.